Akai entered the world of workstations about a year ago with the MPC Key 61. But is it really good? Is it just an MPC Live 2 with keys, or is it a keyboard that can do everything? My name is Nuno Louro and welcome to another Keys Online review video. Akai started producing the MPC, which originally stood for MIDI Production Center, the MPC models in 1988, with the first model being the MPC 60, at a time where drum machines were very popular, especially in the hip-hop world, because they allowed the creation of beats without always recurring to musicians, and allowed the importation of samplers, which was a revolution in the creation of music. Fast forward to 2023, and despite the dominance of computers in the music world, the MPCs, which now stands for Music Production Center, are still very popular, which has led Akai to provide a very complete line of products ranging from the MPC-1 to the MPC-X and the MPC Live MK2, and now the MPC Key 61. What is the idea of the MPC 61? Basically, it is to provide even more possibilities. It keeps the MPC's qualities intact and adds a 61 key keyboard, which makes it able to be whatever the musician wants it to be. A drum machine, a music creation platform, or even a workstation. Before talking about the features, I would like to mention that this Akai MPC was lent to me by the Portuguese store musica.com, to whom I deeply thank for the support and kindness in wanting to embark with me on this journey. They have stores in Coimbra and Aveiro, or online, and I will leave the link to the store website and to the page where you can buy this MPC key in the video description in case you want to investigate further. Let's talk about the technical aspects. We have a 61 key keyboard with aftertouch that Akai calls semi-weighted, but are more on the lightweight side. And then we have 4 GB of RAM to manage the 32 GB of internal memory that store the factory library, with about 6,000 sounds and 25 plugin instruments, but still allows some space to install more sounds. If that space is not enough, we have the possibility to install an SSD. It is also important to mention that we have Bluetooth and Wi-Fi connection. I found particularly interesting the possibility to update the firmware via Wi-Fi. It was very easy, and much more easy than we are used to. In terms of connections, we have 4 outs, 2 hybrid inputs with gain control, 2 USB to device, 1 USB to host, and Ethernet, besides having the 3 MIDI connections, traditional ones. In addition, we have the possibility to connect 3 pedals and 8 CV gate outputs. The keyboard construction is in plastic, which seems to be of good quality and resistance, and the weight is around 8 kilos, which is very good. The street price is around 1,700 euros. In terms of the panel, from left to right, we have the pitch bend wheel and the modulation wheel. Then right on top, we have the control of the aspects that have to do with rhythm, such as tempo, metronome, arpeggiator, and we also have the octave control below. Further to the left, then we have the touch strip that has several functions. It can be for effects on one of the sounds. Then with the touch effects option, you can apply effects to the whole sequence. And finally, the note repeat option to facilitate the repetition of notes, for example, to record some trap hi-hats. Then we have the pads, which are very nice. They have a good sensitivity and are very easy to use. Then on top we have 4 buttons to control the recorded sequences. At the bottom we have the 3 main buttons where you can switch between the different modes. The menu, which shows the main menu. The main, which shows the tracks and allows us to configure the sequence. And the sounds button, which automatically takes us to the plugin screen just to start playing. Then we have the 7-inch screen, which is of excellent quality, and the interface is very easy to use and very nice to use and very snappy. On the right, we have these 4 encoders which are configurable in many ways, and we have 4 banks, which means you can assign 16 controls at once. If you touch any encoder, you can see a description of what it's doing in the screen. At the bottom then, we have the main knob and the value buttons, and further to the right at the top we have the editing controls, either the sound, the grid, the mix and the mutes control via the pads. Then below we have keyboard control, where we control all aspects of the keyboard, from the sensitivity curve to the transpose, etc. Then the sample edit, the timing correct and the undo. An interesting aspect is that by double clicking these buttons we can have access to the secondary functions that are written underneath. And to finish, further down we have the transport bar to control the recording and the playback of our sequences. First of all, let's start talking about sounds. We have the Fabric XL, which is the MPC's main sound engine. Here we can find all kinds of sound possibilities and all kinds of sounds. In this case, the Fabric XL has 2 layers, and then we can control several aspects with like the effects, etc. We also have the Fabric plugin, which is a tuned-down version of the Fabric XL. It has exactly the same presets as the Fabric XL. Then we have dedicated plugins that are very interesting and sound really good. We have the plugin for acoustic pianos, and I'm going to show you the Steinway. As you can see here, we have also a lot of controls for editing, from the lid position to the reverb, etc. Then I will show you the electric pianos. In this case, we have the same thing. We have a lot of controls and we can add it, for instance, the noise of the mechanics, and we can even add an amp. We also have the OPX4, which is an FM synth that was added on this MPC. And here you can see that the controls with the operators, etc., remind you of an FM synth. Also, with a very interesting user interface, we have the Odyssey, which has the same control sliders that the original Odyssey has, and it sounds very good too. And I'd like to mention also the Mellotron, which it's the same thing. It has the same controls and it sounds really good. I will also record a video with more sounds where you can hear the various options of the MPC in more detail. There are about 6,000 sounds, which means that there's always a lot to discover. I think it is precisely because of all the possibilities it offers in terms of sound that the MPC Key has been referred as a possible competitor to a full-on workstation. But before we talk about that aspect, I would like to mention the music creation part. I had never used an MPC before, and for me it was some sort of a revelation. Everything is very easy and intuitive. In less than 5 minutes it is possible to have a complete sequence with many possibilities of interaction that make the process very exciting. For instance, the case of the ribbon. The sounds in general are very competent, which makes it easy, and the only thing missing here is a category search to make the process even faster and simpler. I found myself having a lot more fun than here than in the computer, since there isn't much to distract you once you have the beat or the main motif. You just have to experiment with the possibilities and use your creativity. Now, can it be a substitute for a workstation? In terms of sounds, yes, it sounds really good. I liked the pianos and the electric pianos, the synths. In terms of programming, well, more or less. The biggest problem we have is that the sounds always take a bit of a long time to load. It's like seconds, but for us it's a long time. If we change it in plugins, up to 5 seconds, which means that if I want to change sounds in the middle of a song, for example, from an organ to an acoustic piano, in a traditional way we keyboard players are used to do, I have to wait, and worse than that, there is a sound cut, which means I can't even play. There are some ways around this problem, such as loading the sounds in the sequences and switching between them, switching between sequences, or use mute groups with all the sounds loaded, but they require some planning. That is, for that keyboard player who likes to change a lot of things in real time, for instance, who is used to using the workstation or the Yamaha YC interfaces, for example, this is clearly not the easiest keyboard. Everything has to be really planned. Then there is the issue of the keyboard itself. I am a bit picky about keyboards, I know, and this one not only is slightly smaller in terms of key length, but it is also a bit unstable in terms of sensitivity. I tried adjusting the curve, but still never really felt comfortable, especially with the more expressive sounds like the piano or the electric piano or the strings. I believe that those who are used to play with the weighted piano keyboards may have some difficulties getting used to this keyboard as I did. Too bad this aspect is not that strong. I found myself wishing I had like the Montage's FSX keyboard, for example, or the Roland Phantom 7 one, which is very good. As for the rest, the buttons have a very nice touch, the pads are excellent, and the construction of the keyboard itself seems very solid to me. It feels really ready for the road. First of all, I want to mention the sounds in terms of how they sound and in terms of choice. I wasn't expecting to have so many choice, so many different interfaces. It is really very interesting, and the vast majority of the sounds sound very good. I was surprised by the pianos and the electric pianos and the editing possibilities that we have. And I have the impression that I only explored like 20% of what the keyboard has to offer. Then the interface, very easy, very intuitive, and very modern. You just have to understand the philosophy and things happen naturally. It seems to me that it is more competent in the area of music creation than exactly for the live playing, but even so, it wasn't very difficult to understand the logic. And as with the other keyboards, we have the set list and favorites mode to quickly get to what we want or prefer. Finally, I would like to mention the fact that it is a machine that allows you to expand, because you can also read samples, of course. You can install an SSD, it has Wi-Fi and Bluetooth for whatever you need, and it also has many connection possibilities. For example, you can connect a sound card via USB and add the number of outputs to the sound card to the outs of the keyboard. And then we have also the CV outputs for even more possibilities. The first thing I would like to mention is the keyboard. I know AKAI's forte is not the keyboards, I know that, but this one clearly did not impress me. The key is smaller and the touch and response of it didn't make me very comfortable. I believe I can get used to it, but still it's not spectacular. Another aspect, and it's very obvious, is the time it takes to load the sounds. It is a fact that there are ways around the problem, but a situation as simple as playing the piano at the middle of the song, changing to a pad, even if it is in the favorites or in the set list, then we have two problems. The fact that it takes a few seconds to load the new sound, and the fact that it cuts off the sound that you are using. For those who are used to a more real-time use, it can be highly frustrating. It always requires everything to be planned out. Another issue with the sounds that I also have seen mentioned in some other videos is the issue of the category search, because we would need a category search to go through all the plugins instead of going through each plugin to find the quality of sounds that we want. Finally, a point regarding the Q-Link. I think they should come factory configured for what is most important for each type of sound. I'll explain. If I have a synth, if I choose a synth to play, I would like to have the cutoff, resonance, and ADSR, for instance, really available on the first panel. If it is a piano, for example, I would like to have the lead position or the reverb. It is a fact that we can configure this as we want, but it seems to me like a missed opportunity to improve the experience of playing in real time. First of all, let me say that I think this keyboard doesn't exactly have a direct competition. It is a very special product, different in terms of philosophy, but I think the strongest part is still the composition creation part. But if you want to think of it as a workstation, then the obvious competitors are the Yamaha Mod X Plus, the Roland Phantom O, and the Korg Nautilus. In terms of price, the MPC and the Nautilus, which are around 1700 euros in street price, are more expensive than the other two models, which are around 1300 euros in the store. But I think the MPC has an advantage in terms of sound quality. The keyboard that in terms of philosophy is closer to the MPC is the Roland Phantom O, because it is the most recent of the three and it follows the philosophy that was debuted with the original Phantom in 2019. But is still more like a workstation in the traditional sense. It is also the most competent of all in terms of real-time controls because it has more knobs, more sliders, and offers, for example, the pads that neither the Mod X Plus or the Nautilus offer. However, in terms of sound quality, I think the MPC is a level above the Phantom O, especially when it comes to pianos and electric pianos. The question is whether the keyboard player is willing to completely change the approach to the keyboard and wants to subject himself to having everything programmed in advance. Let's start with this. I love this MPC and I am seriously considering buying one to have here in the studio. I love the workflow, the sounds, and the simplicity with which, in no time at all, I can have a song or an idea completely structured. It's really like a revelation to me. The time that it is lost in having to turn on the computer, preparing things, choose sounds, etc. In this case, it's very organic and it makes the whole process very easy. And the sounds are very good, and the fact that you can then continue to work on the computer with the MPC software plays a lot in favor of this machine. Is it a great keyboard for live playing? I honestly don't think so yet, because you can't just grab it and go play. Everything has to be thought out and in a very detailed way so that nothing is missing at the time. It is doable, but it requires a lot of programming. Moreover, the market trend seems to go towards the keyboards that have the option of real-time absolute control, like the Nord Stage 4 or the Yamaha YC, which makes life more difficult for this MPC Key 61. I will end here, but not before thanking musica.com once again for letting me use this keyboard so I could do this review. It was a great help for this channel and I hope we can collaborate many more times. I will leave the link to the store's website and to the sales page of this AKAI MPC key so you can investigate further. I hope you enjoyed this video and I hope you will leave a like. If you want to see the other videos on the channel and always be up to date with the latest releases, just subscribe and turn on the notifications. Thank you very much for your time and I'll see you in the next video.